Hey everybody, today we are talking about My Friends by Fredrik Backman. This story essentially has two main characters that we follow through the majority of it, but there are really quite a lot of main characters at play here because of the title, of course, saying My Friends, and so there's a lot of friends that are involved in this story. And the way that the story is delivered is in two sections. We have 25 years ago in the past and then the present day. And so it kind of goes back and forth. But the way that the storytelling works is it's not like chapter by chapter, it's switching back and forth in time. It kind of weaves throughout the whole story. And I think the way he did this was really well. I think he did a really good job at making the flow really work. So the way that he made it work so well was we start off by learning about a girl named Louisa, who is a foster child who is just about to turn 18. So she is essentially running away from being in that system, and she's old enough anyway to be out of it. So she just lost someone close to her, and so she doesn't want to be there anymore. She just wants to just be away. And she's also a really good artist. And one day she finds out that the painting that she really loves on a postcard that she has is going to be shown in person at an auction happening in the church. And so she goes and sneaks into this auction so that she can get really up close and look at this painting in person and just have it as a memory for her that she's seen the real thing, the original painting. She does get herself in trouble because she draws little skulls on the wall next to the painting, and some people see her and they're like, oh, she's gonna vandalize it. And so she has to run out. She's like getting kicked out basically, but she like has to run from the security guard because they think that they're like that she's actually going to be vandalizing something. And so they like call the police to try to get her, and she like can't get caught by the police because she doesn't want to get sent back to like the foster home because she's technically not 18 yet. Long story short, she is running away and she trips over someone who she thinks is a homeless guy because he kind of looks that way. They're like behind the church and she has the spray paint and everything. They talk for a little bit. They end up spray painting the wall and talking to each other, and it turns out that this person is the actual artist that drew the painting that she wanted to see. And when she finds that out, like, her mind is blown. She just can't believe it. There's so many questions, but she doesn't have time because she needs to run away because the security guard and the cops are like starting to come towards her, so she has to leave. So they have this brief exchange, but it's enough that they learn enough about each other that it basically impacts the whole rest of the story. So one of the artist's friends is Ted, and Ted basically is in charge of taking care of the artist, making sure he does what he needs to do. The artist is very sick, so they've been staying together, and 25 years ago is when they had like the best summer, and it's when the artist originally drew the painting or painted the painting. And so eventually, I don't want to get into too many spoilers, so eventually Ted and Louisa meet and they speak to each other, and it turns out that the artist had some things that he wanted Ted to do for him, and it involves Louisa. And so they're on a train. For the majority of the book, they're on a train traveling, and you can find out why by reading it. But they are traveling together, and the more that Louisa talks to him, the more Ted realizes that she would have fit in perfectly with his group of friends 25 years ago. And so she says, tell me the story of how the painting was made. So the rest of the book is basically him telling her stories from his past on what led up to the painting. But the way the storytelling is, going back to what I said earlier, it'll kind of switch where it feels like you're living in that time and the narrator is just narrating the story. It doesn't really feel like Ted himself is telling it to Louisa. there's no quotation marks, there's no back and forth. And every once in a while, after a few pages go by, then Louisa will like kick in with a question and it will bring us back to present day. And I don't think it felt clunky at all whenever it would do that. I don't think it like broke the immersion of being back in the 25 years or anything. But because we had to keep returning to what's going on in the train, how close are they to their destination, people that are passing them on the train, things like that. And then Louisa sharing a little bit about her life more to Ted. All that is happening, and then we go back to the original story of the friends as teenagers. Yeah, I just think that the how the story went that way, I think it worked really well because you weren't like wondering really like, let's get back to the past, I want to know what happened, but we're also not like, what's happening with Louisa right now on the train, like, because it doesn't take forever before we go back to that spot. So the way that it goes back and forth, I just think it worked really well to make us not get too stuck in one particular time of the story and make you not care about the other part. Like, I think it helped you want to care about both parts of the story equally, and that even though Louisa wasn't a part of the main friend group 25 years ago, she still seems like a very important character in this story, and how she is going to become a part of this friend group, kind of, in a way. There's a lot of like sad parts in it, and so Louisa a lot of times would be like, wait, right where you ended, that's a perfect ending, maybe I don't want to know anymore because right now it's a happy ending. But eventually curiosity gets the better of her and the story is still continuing to be told. Another way that I liked how the writing was, because the story is called My Friends, like the book is called My Friends, but it's not in first person. So the whole time it's like in the back of your mind, you're wondering like, who is telling this story? Like, isn't this person talking about their friends? But since it's in third person, you don't really know who the narrator is. And a lot of times it feels like regular books that are in third person where the narrator isn't really a character. He's just like, that's just how you're getting the story, but they're not like a main person. But in this one, there were times where it felt like that, but then there were also times where it felt like one of the characters, Jor, for example, one of the like if he said something like, oh, you're gonna be famous one day, I just know it. And then the narrator will say, he was right, but we'll get to that later. And like by the narrator saying something like that, it makes it feel like, oh, well, the narrator is a character in the story. He has to be because, or she has to be because why else would they know if Jor was wrong or not? And that's why like near the beginning part of the story, I was thinking like, who's telling this? Who's the narrator? But then there were times where you just felt like you were getting this information like a regular narrator would, where they're not actually a person. And so I was like, oh, maybe they're not actually a person. But then I kept thinking, why is it called My Friends? Why wouldn't it be called The Friends? Or just Friends? I'm here to tell you that you will find the answer to this. But you gotta be patient because it's not gonna reveal this for quite a while as to like who the narrator is. And I was like, I'd basically forgotten about it at that point, but then when it is revealed, I was like, yes, that makes sense. This is a popular author, so you've probably read things by him already, and you know like the kind of things he writes. And there's definitely elements of that in here. We have some grief, some loss. We also have some happiness. We also have like little twists and turns, and the way that certain big revelations are revealed to you, I think are just done really well, where it keeps the pacing good. I did read a few other people's reviews on this where they thought that, like, there's a lot of like 5 stars, but then there's also some that are like 1 star or 2 star because they just thought the story itself was boring. So you have to go in knowing like it's about art. It's about kids. It's about kids getting in trouble. It's about kids finding themselves. It's about kids learning lessons and going through hard things. And it's about deep friendship and not giving up on one another and taking care of each other, and how this can impact you as your adult self. And how do you continue on as your adult self after all this stuff has happened to you in your past? And how can you take what you've learned and pass it along to like the next generation, like to Louisa, and like how does she really fit into this story when she is significantly younger, just barely becoming an adult herself? How can this information be useful to her, and how she's going to live the rest of her life when she also has struggled a lot being a foster child and being in that system and not having too many people being there for her as she grew up? How can Ted and sharing these stories with her, how can that really help her when she doesn't know anybody else? She barely met the artist for a second, and then she just met Ted, and she hasn't met anyone else that he's talking about. How is that going to actually be any of use to her? And I'm one of the people that would actually rate it higher, because I think that I wanted to know what was happening next. I wasn't disinterested in Louisa's part. I wasn't disinterested in knowing what happened with the main group of friends. Like, that's what the story is mainly centered around, is all of the things that they did and how it led up to the painting being created, which then leads us back to Louisa. And I don't know, I thought that it was good. I did not find it boring. I didn't think the things happening in the story were boring. I mean, if anything, they're pretty realistic to what normal teenagers would go through. Or maybe not, you know, normal teenagers, but like, I think as kids, like as a teenager, there were definitely moments where I got myself into trouble because of the choices I made. And I feel like pretty much everyone did that when they were younger, did something that they knew was a bad idea. And so I think that this makes it more relatable. Even as an adult, you can look back and reminisce on, how was it like when you were growing up? Was it like how it is in the story? Were you getting in trouble a lot? Did you have good ideas, bad ideas? Did you hang out all day long in the summer with your friends? Or did you have a different childhood? I just think that it wasn't boring to me, because I guess I could see that it just seemed like a realistic kind of a story. Like, these things could happen. I mean, not everyone's gonna draw a painting at 14 years old and then become like a millionaire because your painting was so amazing. But it does happen to some people. I mean, there are obviously a lot of artists out there that are, you know, doing that and making a living on it. And so it is a thing that is possible. So yeah, anyway, if any of that sounds intriguing to you, or if you like this author, I'm sure you'll like this book too. I thought it was really good. I've only read one other from him, and it's not even one of the more popular ones. But I liked that one too, and I do think that I would probably like his other stories too, because I've liked the two that I have read. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.